All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading today from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 5. Savaitadaiva pratipaditam giram Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Tam bhakti bhavo bhyagrinada sattvaram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Savaitadaiva pratipaditam giram Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Tam bhakti bhavo bhyagrina satram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Savaitadaiva pratipaditam giram Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Tam bhakti bhavo bhyagrinada sattvaram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Pratipaditam giram Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Bhakti bhavo bhyagirnada sattvaram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Savaitadaiva pratipaditam Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Tam bhakti bhavo bhyagrinada sattvaram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Savaitadaiva pratipaditam giram Daivim parigyata paratma nirnayaha Tam bhakti bhavo bhyagrinada sattvaram Parishrutoru shravasam dhruvakshitihi Saha Dhruva Maharaj. Why? Certainly. Tada. At that time. Eva. Just. Pratipaditam. Having attained. Giram. Speech. Daivim. Transcendental. Parigyata. Understood. Para Atma. Of the Supreme Soul. Nirnayaha. The conclusion. Tam. To the Lord. Bhakti Bhavaha. Situated in devotional service. Abhyagranat. Offered prayers. Satvaram. Without any hasty conclusion. Parishruta. Widely known. Urushravasam. Whose fame. Dhruva Kshittihi. Dhruva, whose planet would not be annihilated. Translation. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers. Purport. There are many important items to be considered in this verse. First of all, the relationship between the absolute truth and the relative material and spiritual energies is here understood by a student who has complete knowledge of the Vedic literature. Dhruva Maharaj never went to any school or academic teacher to learn the Vedic conclusion, but because of his devotional service to the Lord, as soon as the Lord appeared and touched his forehead with his conch shell, automatically the entire Vedic conclusion was revealed to him. That is the process of understanding Vedic literature. One cannot understand it simply by academic learning. The Vedas indicate that only to one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, as well as in the spiritual master, is the Vedic conclusion revealed. The example of Dhruva Maharaj is that he engaged himself in devotional service to the Lord according to the order of his spiritual master, Narad Muni. As a result of his rendering such devotional service with great determination and austerity, the personality of Godhead personally manifested himself before him. Dhruva was only a child. He wanted to offer nice praise to the Lord, but because he lacked sufficient knowledge, he hesitated. But by the mercy of the Lord, as soon as the Lord's conch shell touched his forehead, he became completely aware of the Vedic conclusion. That conclusion is based on proper understanding of the difference between Jiva and Paramatma, the individual soul and the supersoul. The individual soul is forever a servant of the supersoul, and therefore his relationship with the supersoul is to offer service. That is called Bhakti Yoga, or Bhakti Bhava. Dhruva Maharaj offered his prayers to the Lord not in the way of the impersonalist philosophers, but as a devotee. Therefore, it is clearly said here, Bhakti Bhava. The only prayers worth offering are those offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose reputation is spread far and wide. Dhruva Maharaj wanted to have the kingdom of his father, but his father refused even to allow him to get on his lap. In order to fulfill his desire, the Lord had already created a planet known as the pole star, Dhruva Lok, which was never to be annihilated even at the time of the dissolution of the universe. Dhruva Maharaj attained this perfection not by acting hastily, but by patiently executing the order of his spiritual master. And therefore he became so successful that he saw the Lord face to face. Now he was further enabled, by the causeless mercy of the Lord, to offer fitting prayers to the Lord. To glorify or offer prayers unto the Supreme, one needs the Lord's mercy. One cannot write to glorify the Lord unless one is endowed with his causeless mercy. And again, the translation. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvshe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, today we are continuing our discussion of Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes, and it's a very beautiful shlok and a very beautiful purport as well. Very, very lovely, of course. All of Prabhupada's purports are beautiful, but this one is touching on quite a few points. Prabhupada very nicely introduces his comments on the shlok by saying there are many important items to be considered in this verse. So if there are many important items to be considered as per Prabhupada's advice, then this appears to be a text that we should strongly internalize within ourselves because of its various siddhantas. Of course, we're seeing the point here that Dhruva Maharaj, he is engaged in devotional service to the Lord. But how is he engaged in devotional service? He is engaged under order of his spiritual master, Narad Muni. Of course, we can see Dhruv Maharaj, he is, as we've been hearing over the past few weeks, he has been engaged in the service. He has received various things from his guru. He has received shiksha, right? He's been told to go to perform this yogic process with some devotional service, right? In order to attain his goal. His very lofty goal of attaining such a great kingdom. We've also seen he's received Diksha, right? And which mantra has he received Diksha into? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is Diksha mantra he's received from Narad Muni. Our acharyas, they actually like to make this point. By birth, by caste, we can say by birth, Dhruv Maharaj, he is what? He is a Kshatriya. And yet we can see here he's receiving mantra diksha. Right? So our acharyas like to make the point that to receive the mantra, it is not the monopoly of those who are born in Brahminical families, because even Dhruva Maharaj, he is receiving this initiation. So we can see mantra diksha is a broad thing that can be applied to anyone, insofar as they are brought in accordance with the Vaishnav conclusion, which we can see Dhruv Maharaj very nicely will begin to express. So we can see here there's been some engagement in the devotional process. Of course, the mantra is different, perhaps the initiation is different, perhaps the method is different. But what we can see is there's still an underlying principle. No matter what is different yuga, different goal, different process, still the very essentials of spiritual life are the same. And what are those essentials? To take shelter of the spiritual master and to serve the Lord under the spiritual master's shelter. Actually, this is amazing when we think about it, right? We are separated by so much, right? By culture, by context, by time, right? Very few of us, when we decided to pursue some spiritual path, had Narad Muni appear as we're walking around, right? So we are in a very, very different situation with Dhruva Maharaj. We are not trying to contest the throne to rule the whole world, right? Perhaps ruling our senses would be a nice first start. But no, we are doing none of these things. And yet that principle remains the same, to take shelter of the Guru, and then to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in such a way. And what happens when one serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the shelter of the Guru? Well, we can see here. All of the words appear, even if we do not necessarily understand them. It's said, the Shruti and the Smriti, they are the two eyes of knowledge. Right? Sridhar Swami, he says this. They're the two eyes of knowledge, and so if one doesn't know one, they are half blind, right? But then he also says that these days people are fully blind. They do not know the Shruti or the Smriti. But the path of bhakti, it is so merciful that even with both eyes blinded, simply by engaging in devotional service, we can run, and Krishna, he will make sure we find the right way. So we can run blinded and mad, maybe having no strict knowledge. And actually we don't have such strict knowledge. If you see how Pakka Brahmanas will study the Vedas, right? We cannot claim to have had such study, right? But still, we can hope to have the Vedanta, the conclusion of the Vedas, manifest. Because by the engagement with the holy name, by the engagement with Krishna consciousness, then we will begin to understand something. Once, Narad Muni himself, he went to all the Devatas. All the Devatas, they were hanging out, right? And they're all together, and Narad Muni, he told all the Devatas, he said, okay, let's finally settle it. Let's find out who's the greatest of the demigods. Let's decide this. So all the demigods, they said, okay, we like this. We like this idea. Let's finally settle it. So you know, when Bhagavan Nrsingadev appears, right, and he's ripping up Hiranyakashipu, and what happens? All the devatas, they're there, and they're seeing, Nrsingadev, tearing up Hiranyakashipu. And we know very famously, none of the devatas felt comfortable to approach Nrsingadev, right? None of them felt comfortable. They sent Prahlad Maharaj. And so I once heard, there's a few explanations given why. But one is that the devatas, in order to be a demigod, you're still, there's still a high chance. There's a lot of sattva gun, but not necessarily shuddha sattva, right? And so there's still some sort of material tinge, right? Maybe it's in a sattvic way expressed, but there's still some desire to make material progress. And so all the demigods, they thought, he's so angry. I don't have as much ambition as Hiranyakashipu did. A tiny bit of ambition. And Nrsingadev, he's so angry, we're worried. What if I go up to him and he notices that tiny bit and he rips my guts out as well? So in this way, the demigods, they're all very worried. So there is some sort of, not rajasic, but you can almost say sattvic propensity among some of the demigods. Then of course other demigods perhaps are purified fully by bhakti, and then we would not consider that propensity there. But in this way, we see that the devatas occasionally have this propensity within them. So in this way, they're all discussing, and they're all saying, yes, we very much like this proposition by Narad Muni. Now we can finally settle who is the greatest, who is not the greatest. We'll figure this out. And so Narad Muni, he says, okay, I will propose a plan. All of you, you have your various carriers. Whoever can race around this whole universe 3 times first, right? We'll do it as a race, right? Whoever can do it 3 times first, this person will be considered the greatest of all the demigods. So they all said, okay, this is very good. So they all got together with all their various carriers, and they thought, we'll see who'll be the fastest, who will win this race. And everyone knew there were 2 front runners, two personalities who people were pretty sure it would be one or the other, right? It was Brahma and Shiva. Shiva is there with who? With Nandini, his cow carrier. And Brahma, he is there with his Hamsa, his swan-like carrier. Well, not swan-like, his swan carrier, right? And so they're there and they get ready. They're all ready to go. And then also we have Ganesh. Ganesh, he's also there. Perhaps he will be the overcomer of obstacles. So what happens is this race begins, and instantly they shoot away. And of course we know Ganesh, he's on a rat, right? Actually Ganesh, we can see some tattvas are there. Ganesh, of course, he's Vigna Vinashan, right? Overcomer of obstacles. And of course, how does he attain the ability to be the overcomer of obstacles? Who knows? Yes, by worshipping the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan Nrsimhadev. So in this way, he is considered such a great overcomer of obstacles. And so they say he has very big ears. And he has very big ears because he's showing the method through which we are able to overcome any obstacle is through hearing. So the reception of knowledge, with big ears, this is the way that we can overcome obstacles. The other thing we see with Ganesh is, of course, he's riding on a rat. And actually, it's considered rats are the great enemies of elephants. Because, of course, elephants, they can fight a tiger, they can fight a lion, and they can win. But they're considered very scared of rats. So what we see here, though, is that Ganesh is befriending his rat carrier. He's showing that we should be friends with our enemies, right? If we have a natural enemy, we should see this as an opportunity to make friends. Anyway, so Ganesh is like this interesting personality. And he's there, and we also know he's very healthy. He's a little bit, on the heavier side, right? And so instantly, as everyone shoots ahead, Ganesh, he's at the back, right? His rat is struggling to carry him, right? But Shiva and Brahma, they're shooting towards the front. Yes, and so they go all around, zoom, zoom, like this around. And then right at the end, as they're going on their third time around the universe, Brahma and Shiva, they're neck to neck, and they're both thinking, I'll be known as the greatest Devata, I'll be known as the greatest Devata, like this. And then right as they go to reach the finish line, where they all first began, right at the end, we know Brahma's Hamsa, right? We know swans, they have very long necks. And what the swan did, instead of maintaining its regal posture, it stuck its head out like this. Stuck its head forward just a bit and added an extra meter on. And with this extra meter, even though Shiva and Brahma were neck to neck, Brahma, he won. But Shiva, he thought, I will not accept this. This is not bona fide, right? This is cheating. So he goes to Narad Muni. And he tells Narad Muni, he says, Narad Muni, please, come on. Please tell us, who is the true winner? Because yes, Brahma, he crossed the finish line first, but he didn't actually complete 3 times around. He is 1 meter short of 3 times around because the head stuck out. And actually, he has stopped the whole distance. And then Brahma, he said, no, actually, this is not true, right? It is the same vehicle, and that vehicle has crossed the finish line. Like this, they're going back and forth. And Narad Muni, he sits down and thinks. And then he says, actually, neither of you won. And they thought, what? How did this happen? And he said, actually, Ganesha's won. And then they're all confused now. What's happening here? And so he said, because what actually happened was, when Ganesh went right at the back, he thought, this is very embarrassing. At least let me lose by some small margin. But at this rate, it'll be the next yuga by the time I catch up with these guys. So Ganesh thought this is very embarrassing. Then he thought, this will cause really big issues. I'm Vigna Vinashan. Who's going to do Ganesh Puja for me now? If I'm going to be doing this, right? Oh, and then this whole Devata concept within Varnashram, what will happen? So Ganesh became very worried. What will happen? Oh no, it's too embarrassing. So what he did is he got off and he took a little piece of paper from his pocket. And thankfully he always has a pen with him, right? And he wrote on this piece of paper, he wrote 2 syllables. He wrote Krish and Na. And he put this little piece of paper in front of him. He went back onto his rat carrier and he went around that 3 times. And so Narad Muni, he said, actually Ganesh, all of you have gone around this one universe 3 times. But Ganesh, he has gone around all the many infinite universes. He's gone around them 3 times. And therefore Ganesh is the winner. And he is the greatest of the Devatas. Why? Because he has acknowledged the power of Harinam. He has acknowledged the supreme position of Sri Bhagavan Krishna, but he's also acknowledged that Harinam is non-different to Krishna. So what do we see here? We can think of all of the different accolades and achievements and propensities that we can have, but none of them come close to conquering the power of Harinam and the power of surrender and appreciation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see this again with Dhruva Maharaj. Prabhupada has a very sweet line in the purport. Dhruva was only a child, right? Only a child, Dhruva Maharaj, and yet he is so capable now of glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Prabhupada makes emphasis on this. It is not through any academic learning or any academic achievement. It is not through any of these that one is able to understand devotional service. And if one is unable to understand devotional service, then they do not understand, right? The essence of knowledge. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna, right? Krishna says this. Become such a yogi who is absorbed in bhakti. And if one should become such a yogi, then that is Krishna's recommendation for the greatest knowledge. We can understand this rather clearly, actually, when Prabhupada he discusses, right, the relationship between the absolute truth and the relative and spiritual energies is here understood, right? What does this mean? Sometimes people, they will say, oh, some people have bhakti towards this personality, some people have bhakti towards that personality, right? People, they'll say, oh, I have bhakti to this person, and this person has bhakti towards that personality, right? People will say, I'm an Indra Bhakt, right? I'm a Brihaspati Bhakt. People will say, I'm a Bhakta of all sorts of things. But actually, if we understand what bhakti is, these statements, they are in a sense correct, of course, in the general meaning, but we should understand philosophically. Sometimes we think bhakti is perhaps a set of behaviors, and it is a set of behaviors, right? But it is a set of behaviors imbued with the Sarup Shakti of the Lord, with the internal potency of the Lord. Bhakti is not of our own endeavor. Bhakti is not some activity that we have the inherent ability to perform, and therefore we just do it, right? This is why Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion, when he begins to discuss the Anyabhilashita Shunyam text, right, he starts discussing initiation, right? Why? He's describing the nature of the Guru, because this is the nature through which bhakti flows in this world. Bhakti is not just something where we can wake up and say, today I will worship Krishna. Bhakti is the Sarup Shakti of the Lord. It is the internal potency of the Lord coming as Bhakti Devi. And Bhakti Devi is being transmitted through the Guru, through the Vaishnav, through the sadhus, and that bhakti is being transmitted to us. And then it is being received. But not as some magic trick, right? We have some idea, right? There's some magic trick. There was one sadhu in Mathura, and one of his disciples saw Guru Maharaj will always leave his shoes outside his door before he goes into his room. So this disciple thought, I have a very good plan. Because what happened is, one day this disciple, he was walking through the market chanting his rounds. And he saw in the market a shoe seller who was selling shoes exactly the same type, exactly the same look as his Guru Maharaj's shoes. And seeing these shoes, he thought, Krishna, he has revealed the intelligence by which I can come onto him. This is what he has thought. And so he buys these shoes. And then at night, his spiritual master goes to sleep in his quarters. And he takes these shoes. And he steals his spiritual master's shoes. And then he places these shoes there instead. And then he thinks, now I've attained the treasure, right? Now this treasure is mine. I have the shoes of my Guru. And so I will place these on my head, right? I will have these. And by stealing these shoes, Bhava Bhakti is mine. And this is how this is a devotee thought. So then the next morning, 3 a.m., getting ready for Mangal Arti, the spiritual master, he opens his door and he looks down. And there's always some disciples who will wake up extra early to have darshan of their spiritual master. They would all wake up like this. So, in this way, he wakes up and then he looks down at his shoes. And instantly, he looks up at his disciples. He sees the disciple who has taken the shoes. And he points and he says, where are my shoes? The disciple instantly puts his head down. He's very, very embarrassed, right? And then the Guru, he says, I never did anything like this. I never did anything like this to my Guru Maharaj. I was not stealing things. The only thing I wished to receive from him was his bhav. I did not wish to take items. So this is an interesting point, because of course we think, why else did the disciple take it? So I can get bhav, right? I can get bhav from the shoes. But this bhav, this bhakti, is not like some magic trick. Oh, I have the magical wand. Now I have these and now I'll tap them on my head and then instantly bhakti will awaken. Prabhupada, he also emphasizes this point. It is not that service to Guru is like is a magic trick necessarily. The kripa manifests in the instructions that are then followed and then realized, and that is the way that the bhakti shakti is traversing, is traveling through. That is the way that this is understood, so we should understand. This is the nature of bhakti. Bhakti is not, again, just some activity that you can do for anything. It is Krishna's internal potency. And if it is Krishna's svarup shakti, if it is Krishna's internal potency, then it can't just be applied for anyone and everyone. Right? Because the shaktis of the world, the shaktis of all reality, they are doing what? They are serving Krishna. Therefore, we see, I won't go through it again, I went through it last week, but anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanam anukulyena krishnanu, right? Krishna here, it's very specific. It's not a sectarian claim. It's not something fundamentalist or something fanatic to say that bhaktir uttama is service to Krishna. It is simply a philosophical fact, right? Shrinvatam svakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtanaha, right? Svakatha Krishna, right? The katha of who? Sva, of himself, right? Again, not out of some fanaticism, not out of some sectarianism, but out of a recognition that bhakti, this devotional process, it is a manifestation of the potency of the Lord that has been transmitted by the Guru into the heart of the disciple, right? And if it is the potency of the Lord, then it is coming to serve and to enable service to the Lord. So in this way, we can see this. Actually, I remember the first time I met my spiritual master in person, the first time I had Vapu Darshan. I was there, I paid dandavats, and I was very nervous. I wasn't sure how Guru Maharaj was running the darshans at the time. So I went and I gave dandavats, and then I had with me, some dakshina, something to offer, and I gave it to Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj, he looked at me, and he just and then he was just looking, and then one of my godbrothers, he looked at me and he said, "Okay, what do you want? What do you want? Do you have a question or something for Guru Maharaj, or are you like that?" And then I thought, I didn't have a question ready. I didn't think I would get this far. So I was there sitting, and then I thought, I should ask a question, how does it go? The Tattva Darshana, what's the beginning? Yes, Pranipatena, Pariprashnena Sevaya, right? And I thought, I've done the Pranipatena. I should really do the Pariprashna now. I should try get some instructions. So I thought, okay. And then I was just looking at Guru Maharaj, and then I thought, Gurudev. And then I thought, should I have said Gurudev? And then I was getting very nervous like this, right? But then I just said, how can I grow in my love for Srimad Bhagavatam? That's what I asked. I thought, maybe Guru Maharaj will be pleased with that question. And Guru Maharaj, he looked at me, and he said, "Theek hai." That was it. And then Guru Maharaj, he took his hand out, and he placed it on my head, right? And then he put it away, and then that was it. I was sitting there, but I stayed in the room, and I was thinking, Guru Maharaj can answer my question yet? Like this, I was thinking, soon Guru Maharaj will tell me, the trick, read the shlokas first and then read the purport, something like this. I'll find out some, get a highlighter and highlight the good parts of the purport, right? I was thinking like this. Guru Maharaj, he'll give me some nice tip. But then, we were all told, okay, get out now. Guru Maharaj needs to honor prasad, right? So in this way, we were all kicked out, like this. A silly idea, right? It was actually Guru Maharaj, he had given his mercy by blessing me. And yet, I still have no taste for Bhagavatam. Why? This is because it is not a magical thing. It's not just like some magic trick. We also have to try to imbibe this mercy. We have to try to implement it. Right? This is the point Prabhupada is making. Bhakti is not some magical process, right? The mercy might be there, and the mercy is always there. I heard from one sadhu once, at the time of initiation, everything is there. Even one swarup in the spiritual world and all these rasic things that we shouldn't rush into, right? All of these things are actually present there in the dispensation of initiation, of Diksha. But are we churning out that dispensation of mercy, right? Are we mulling over it? Are we able to extract from it? And when we can see here, Dhruva Maharaj, he was very able to extract this. And this is his great qualification, right? Bhakti is not a magical trick. It is not something that is so, it's not something that is attained in such a way, because what do we see? He wanted to offer nice praise to the Lord, but he lacked sufficient knowledge, right? The desire must be there. The purification must be there. There was once one disciple of Sripad Ramanujacharya. And this disciple, he went up to his Guru Maharaj and he said, Guru Maharaj, please, I would like to ask of you one blessing, one benediction. Ramanujacharya said, okay, tell me, what is it? This disciple said, I'm reading through Bhagavad Gita and I'm hearing all of these great, great things. I'm hearing about, 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, how I can sit down and focus my breath, right, within myself, and I can attain some realization. Chapter 3, I'm hearing the glories of Karma Yoga, acting without any desire, right? And then, chapter 12 of Bhakti Yoga, right? Wow, right? This is amazing, right? And then I'm hearing, in the 9th chapter, the greatest knowledge, right? Manmana bhava mad bhakto, right? I'm hearing all of these things. But then at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he explains everything again in the 18th chapter. And then right at the end he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vrajaham tam sarva papebhyo moksha yashami mashuchaha. He says, give it all up. Guru Maharaj, I'm very confused. How can I understand this? How can this be understood? So Ramanujacharya, he said, actually, in order to, I will explain this to you. But first you must do something. You must give up all your possessions. You must give up everything you have. You must come and live right next to me. And for 1 year you must serve me consistently. And by doing that you will have Shravan Adhikar. You can understand, Shravan Adhikar means the qualification to hear. Here we see Dhruva Maharaj, he is having Kirtan Adhikar. He's having the Adhikar to speak, to glorify the Lord. But before we can speak, what must we do? We must hear, right? The best speaker is a good hearer, right? That's why we see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he writes in his Upadeshamrita commentary, and Prabhupada, our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he echoes this. The first stage of devotional service is Shravana Dasha, to hear. Then the next stage is Kirtan. Actually, even in a mundane sense, this works. I was talking to one of my professors, and I think she could see I had a bit of pride in me because I was getting one of my writings published in some journal, right? And then she just looked at me as I was saying, I'm getting published in an XYZ journal, right? I was telling her, and then she said, oh, it's very interesting how universities are run these days. Back when I was a student, you had to have something to say before speaking. And I thought, okay, thank you. Guru Tattva comes in all sorts of places. And I thought, now Guru Tattva has appeared to chastise me here. So we should hear before speaking. So anyways, qualification to hear must come before qualification to speak. And Ramanujacharya, he felt there is not even a qualification to hear here. So he said, first, you must come. And you must serve me like this. But then, this disciple, he says, Guru Maharaj, who knows who will live for 12 months? Who will live for 12 minutes even? Gurudev, I cannot wait for 12 months because what if I die in the coming year? And if I die in this coming year, I will die without knowing the meaning of Sarva Dharman Parityajya. I will die without this knowledge. And so, please give me some way that I can serve you and have this knowledge revealed to me sooner. And so in this way, Ramanujacharya said, okay, for 1 month, you should go out and beg. And whatever food or wealth arrives, you take that and you live on that alone. After doing this, your ego will decrease enough. You will have Shravan Adhikar to hear this explanation. So this disciple, Kurish, he was very happy with this, and he said, okay, Gurudev. And he went out and he started going, begging, right, like this. Here we can see, right, there is Shravan Adhikar. There is some qualification that is required, even to hear, right? We are speaking again about qualification to speak, but even to hear, there is some qualification. Devotees sometimes take it very cheaply. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvattaha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti ma meti surjuna, right? The famous text, right? So people think, oh, yeah, janma karma cha me divyam. Yeah, I've understood. Yeah, you know, Krishna, there's like some prison there, and, you know, he's born, and, you know, many hands, and then, you know, the gods are all asleep, and then he goes, and, you know, yeah, I know Janma. And karma, yeah, you know, he kills the demons, and then, you know, he's plays around with his friends, and yeah, I know all of these things. You know, people think, yeah, Janma karma cha me divyam. I'm the one, I know this, right? So easy, done. Don't have to take birth in this material world again. But we miss the essential part. And what is the essential part? Tatvattaha, right? Who is knowing them in truth? We are hearing all these pastimes. We are thinking we're understanding. We're thinking, oh, we have some grasp. But is there actually a grasp of the pastimes of the Lord? Is there actually a grasp? Janma karma cha me divyam, right? Do we have a grasp of these? Because, if not, then one is meditating on all of these pastimes, atatvaha, right? Without knowledge. Without realization. And a meditation without realization, one then becomes like the sahajiyas, right? Going around, thinking all of these things, all of these speculations. And then we think, oh, I'm not speculating, I'm simply hearing it as it is spoken, right? But are we hearing it as it is spoken? Only if we have Shravan Adhikar, only if we have some qualification to hear, then we are able to hear. And that's why people, they will say, oh, Prabhupada's purports, so repetitive, right? Every time he says to do bhakti, right? But where else will we get the Shravan Adhikar? Where else will we get the qualification to hear these pastimes? I'm not even meaning the Raslila, even like the birth pastimes of Krishna, even the pastimes of Ritrasur. Where will the Adhikar appear, if not by the execution of devotional service? So Ramanujacharya, he's making this point. Sadhana must be there in order to be able to even hear explanations of Sarva Dharman Parityaja, right? Of course, we are in Mahaprabhu's movement, so everyone's getting purified quickly. So someone touches a Gita, we can, and with a bit of faith, we can launch into an explanation of Sarva Dharman Parityaja. But still, that principle is there. So in this way, Qureshi does this, and he appears before his Gurudev, his eyes glowing, right? His face effulgent. In this way, with this effulgent, radiant face, Ramanujacharya, he says, see, before you had all these anxieties in your heart. Now you are free from anxiety. Now your heart is open, and I can give you this knowledge. And then, at this point, Ramanujacharya, he gave his tika, his commentary. He gave his explanation of this Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Now at this point, there was another disciple of Ramanujacharya. His name is Dasarathi. And this Dasarathi, he was a relative of Ramanujacharya and a disciple. And so he saw, oh, my god brother, he's looking so effulgent. He's looking so beautiful. I need to find out his secret. So he goes to this god brother and he says, you know, you're looking so effulgent. You know, you're looking so wonderful. What's your secret? And he said, oh, I did some tapasya. And Guru Maharaj, he explained to me what Sarva Dharman Parityaja, what this shlok in Bhagavad Gita, what it means. 1866, I learnt it, right? And then this Dasarathi, he thought, okay, I should also learn this. So he went before Ramanujacharya. And he told Ramanujacharya, he said, please Guru Maharaj, can you explain this verse to me? Ramanujacharya, he said, unfortunately, you are my relative. And because you are my relative, when I see you, I find it a little hard to notice your faults. Because I have the natural affection towards you. And with this natural affection, it is hard for me to play the role of fully being able to criticize and chastise you in such a way that I can purify you to receive this knowledge. Instead, you should go to my Shiksha Guru. We know Ramanujacharya, famous, many gurus, right? Goshti Purna. You should go to Goshti Purna and you should take some Shiksha from him. So this Dasarathi, he says, okay, I will go. Actually, we see this is a practice in Vaishnavism. Sometimes the Guru cannot perform, the Diksha Guru cannot perform the job of instruction, right? And that is through limitation. Sometimes that is through the limitation of the realization of the Diksha Guru. That is less common, right? Sometimes the Diksha Guru will feel, I cannot guide this disciple anymore, so they will say, you go to a Shiksha Guru. In another case, as is in this case, there might be some physical limitation. We know this in ISKCON. How many of us who are initiated are having constant association and guidance with our Diksha Gurus? Not many, right? Because the Diksha Gurus in ISKCON, they're traveling the world all the time, they're moving around, and we are serving here in Sydney, right? So the Shiksha Guru is there to help assist the Diksha Guru when some limitation has arisen. Limitation does not mean fault of the Diksha Guru, because who would be so foolish to fault Ramanujacharya? Who would be so foolish? No one, right? So we can see in this way, some limitation has been perceived and a Shiksha Guru has been advised. So in this way, this disciple, he then goes to Goshti Purna and he tells him, you know, my spiritual master, Srimad Ramanujacharya, right? He has told me to come here to understand something about Sarva Dharman Parityaja, right? About the shlok. And so Goshti Purna, he tells him, okay, you stay here, 6 months of service, and then I will tell you. And then he thinks, okay, very good. Dasarathi, he's a great, great scholar, right? And so he understood, oh yes, by service, that is how I can learn, right? So in this way, he's serving, and for 6 months go along, and he starts entering into the 7th month. And after entering into the 7th month, he thinks, you know, Guru Maharaj, he has not yet told me what is the meaning of 1866. So he goes to Goshti Purna and he tells him, Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, you know, please explain to me. I've been serving for 6 months now, nearly 7 months. Please explain to me, what is Bhagavad Gita 1866? At that point, Goshti Purna, he said, he felt some compassion. And he said, Dasarathi, he said, you are such a great scholar, but unfortunately your pride is so great. You are a great scholar and you know that you are a great scholar. And because you know that, I cannot explain the shlok to you. You have to go back to your Gurudev, Sri Srimad Ramanujacharya. I cannot help you. I can give the mercy, but you cannot receive it. Your ahankara is blocking the way. And so in this way, Dasarathi is thinking, my Diksha Guru can't help me. My Shiksha Guru can't help me. I'm really in a difficult situation. And so he begins to walk all the way back to Sri Rangam. As he's walking back, at this time, a woman is crying in the mud. And she's crying to Sripad Ramanujacharya. And Ramanujacharya, he says, why are you here? Why are you crying? What are you doing here? And she's crying and she says, I recently got married, but my mother-in-law, she wants to treat me like a slave. Every single thing I'm doing, right? Every single thing I'm doing is not enough. And she's saying, you're washing the dishes, you should also do the laundry. You're doing the laundry, you should also be cooking. You're also cooking, you should be cleaning. Like this, she's attacking me all the time. And so one day overnight, I couldn't stand it and I ran back home. And I told my father what is happening. And my father, he had compassion. He realized this is not a very nice way to live. So my father, he said, Sripad Ramanujacharya, he will resolve all of your problems. You go to Srila Ramanujacharya and he will give you an answer. So Ramanujacharya, who was sitting there and he was thinking, okay, I have to come up with a solution. Actually, we see that this is really interesting. I was hearing this from one brahmachari who was telling me that he stays with his Guru Maharaj whenever grihasthas come in, right? And he's serving his Guru Maharaj. And he says, so many times people will go to sannyasis and they'll have all of their, grihastha issues. And then you'll have some Naishtik brahmachari who will say, I don't know, why are you coming to me for advice on this? Actually, I heard one sadhu once said, he said, I am a Naishtik brahmachari. I have no vigyan, I have no realization about the grihastha ashram. You ask one of your senior grihastha god brothers or god sisters and you get some knowledge from them. I don't want to know and nor do I know, right? I've taken to brahmacharya for a reason, right? So I heard once, apparently that was an answer given. But anyways, so in this way, but Ramanujacharya, he's sitting and he's thinking, because he's also feeling compassion. He's thinking, this is actually a terrible situation. I should be able to help. So in this way, he's sitting. And then, as he's sitting there, he sees in the distance Dasarathi. He's walking towards the ashram. And suddenly a solution becomes clear. And before Dasarathi can even unpack his sleeping bag back into the ashram, right? Before he can set up his altar in his corner of the ashram, right? Before he can do any of these things, Ramanujacharya, he says, you take this person, he is your servant, he will cook and he will do all the cleaning for you. And so Dasarathi, before he's even able to enter into the ashram, he's being ordered into a new seva. He wasn't even able to return to the ashram. So he went along. Instantly he obeyed. This is of course how we should be. As Prabhupada has mentioned, under the guidance of the Guru, we are able to serve Krishna, not in any other way. So in this way, Dasarathi, he goes, and then he's there, and he's helping out, right? And he's living in the village that this woman came from, and everything was settled. Mother-in-law was satisfied because now the daughter-in-law had brought a servant, right? And so here we have the great scholar Dasarathi, disciple of Srila Ramanujacharya, and he's there and he's cleaning the ground, right? He's washing the pots, he's chopping the sabji, he's cooking like this. And in this way he's engaged in all of the service, and he's there for months and months, even up until a year. And then one day some pandit comes. Some pandit comes into the village. And this pandit arriving in the village, he begins to speak Hari Katha. And Dasarathi is thinking, he's itching, right? He's itching, itching for some Hari Katha, some transcendental knowledge. And he's thinking, it's so long since I've heard the glories of the Lord. And everyone else in the village is going. So I'll just go and I'll listen a little bit. So he went with his apron was still on, and, he went out and he went before the speaker, and the speaker was, kept on speaking. And then he heard something. We know Ramanujacharya, what is one of his great contributions, of his many great contributions, what is one of the great ones he has done in relation to Mayavad? Well, he has refuted Mayavad, right? He was one of the first great acharyas to launch a massive campaign to refute this Mayavad Apasiddhanta, right? With his Shri Bhashya and all of these other literatures, he has done one of the first real chinks in the armor of Mayavad philosophy. So in this way, a disciple of Ramanujacharya is now hearing some Mayavad philosophy. He could not tolerate it. It reminds me, once I was hearing one podcast by an academic who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, right? And in the whole podcast, he was there invited in terms of being an academic. So he was very balanced. He wouldn't say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He would say, according to the Gauriya Vaishnav tradition, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like this, he was very balanced and neutral, right? He was saying, according to scientific methods, we would say this. And according to this, we would say this. And like this, he was very balanced. And then the host of this show, he said something. He was like, oh, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says we are all Krishna, right? And instantly, the academic thing dropped, and he was just smashing this guy in this podcast. He was saying, this is bogus, and he was quoting shloka after shloka after shloka. It was, again, Prabhupada himself as well, right? Nirvishesha shunyavadi paschatadeshatarine, right? This is Prabhupada's mood, and we see this in the disciples of Prabhupada, that heavy chastisement of Mayavad. So in the same way, this disciple of Srila Ramanujacharya, he was very disturbed. And he raised his hand up, and he said, I'm not sure, there's something, I think you said something incorrect. And this Pandit, he looks at him, and he says, oh, have you ever seen a jackal walk into the Svarga Lok? Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen a jackal just walk into Svarga Lok? And then everyone said no. And then he said, in the same way, have you ever seen a cook walk into Siddhanta? What are you talking about? You shut up. That's what he said. He said, you be quiet. You can show me how to cook, but don't show us how to understand Siddhanta. You are not trained for this. In this way, he spoke very heavily, embarrassed Dasarathi in front of the whole village. And then Dasarathi, before, with some pride, he would have thought, I am a relative of Sripad Ramanujacharya. I am a great scholar. He would have become very angry. But instead, he humbly accepted this. And with a smile, he said, I simply have one question. And then he asked his one question. And in this question, He had so many pramans, so many references to the Shastra, so many powerful logical points that he had heard from Sripad Ramanujacharya. And at this point, the Pandit, he was shocked. He was completely convinced against Mayavad philosophy. And he went before this disciple of Ramanujacharya, and he took the dust from his lotus feet. And he said, "Who are you? Such deep knowledge you have of the Shastra." And he said, "I'm Dasharati, and I am a disciple, a servant of Sri Srimad Ramanujacharya." And in this way, the whole village, they thought, "Oh, wow, we've been eating his puris." And he is this great disciple of Ramanujacharya. What have we been doing? So instantly the whole village, they assembled together. And they went to Sri Rangam. And they said, oh, great Ramanujacharya. They said, "Our cook is one of your disciples." And they said, please, we heard the whole story. He was filled with pride and you've sent him here. Please let him return to you. We will have a palanquin ready. We will carry him on our backs and we'll carry him from the village to Sri Rangam. Please let him come home. Ramanujacharya, he said, no. I will go to him. I wish to see how he is behaving. So Ramanujacharya, he went with the whole village. Can you imagine how blessed this village was? One day they have a new cook. The next day they're having association of 2 Mahabhagavats. So in this way, Ramanujacharya, he walks with them. And he goes, and what does he see when he enters into the village? He sees his disciple with his dhoti, tied up halfway, right? Carrying these pots, walking around. And instantly, Dasharati, he sees his Guru Maharaj and he instantly falls down. Dandavat pranams to his Guru Maharaj. Ramanujacharya, he was so pleased to see his disciple, even while the whole village was gone, still engaged in service, still engaged in this humble mood. And so he saw him, and instantly there and then in the village, he sat down and he explained to him what Bhagavad Gita 1866 means, what Sarva Dharman Parityaja means. And he gave him all of that knowledge. He had attained Shravanadhikar, not through scholarship, but through service. And then he also said, from now on your name will not be Dasarati. From now on your name will be Vaishnav Das. Vaishnav Das Prabhu Ki Jai. So, in this way, Ramanujacharya, he is informing, he is showing in this pastime, and so is Vaishnav Das. This is the adhikar, even to hear, let alone to speak. Kirtan is not just, look how many alaps I can do, right? Kirtan is not just, I can do 2-beat and I can do 3-beat kartal playing, right? No, Kirtan is all glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what Dhruv Maharaj is engaged in here is Kirtan. And this is Kirtan no less. And so, with this Kirtan, this Trinadapi Sunichana, this applies as well. But of course, as I said before, we have to hear before we can speak. So in this way, we see Dhruv Maharaj here showing simply by sincere desire to serve, and simply by surrender to the spiritual master. In this way, and in this way only, one will be empowered in order to achieve success in their services. There's nothing else. Anyways, I thought last week I spoke a little too much philosophy, so I spoke a bit more stories today. But the problem with stories is you go over time, so I think we'll wrap up there. But oh yes, Prabhu, I'll take a question. Qualification to reside in the Polestar? I don't know. I can't think of any rule. I haven't tried to go there myself, so I'm not sure what the specific thing is, but I mean, what we can see here is you have to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead pretty highly. You have to receive some, so yeah. At the very least, we've seen through Kripa you can receive it, but yeah, I'm not sure what the specific qualification is. Maybe some of the Vaishnavas but I wouldn't know. In terms of Vedic conclusion is Anyabhilashita shunyam jnanakarmadinavritam anukuyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. That is the Vedic conclusion. To know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but then to worship Him under the guidance of the spiritual master, devoid of any other desire. That is the Vedic conclusion. Besides that, there's, that's what we see Prabhupada here. He's talking about bhakti yoga, bhakti bhav, all of these things. So not just to know that Krishna is God, right? Many people know Krishna as God. Kamsa knows Krishna as God and he's scared of it, right? But we should know Krishna as God and respond with love. That is the Vedic conclusion. Okay, well. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.